Hello, I am Xarkun and this is World of Warships Legends. Today we're going to talk about the brand new Legendary Tier United States Navy battleship USS Montana. And about this ship, there are two things of which I am sure. The first is that probably a significant number of people who live in the United States, like I do, are probably looking forward to this ship because the United States Navy lines in this game tend to be popular with people who live in the United States. But the other thing about this ship, of which I am sure, is that when a significant number of people finally get their hands on it, they are going to find it to be a slightly disappointing or underwhelming experience. And we'll talk about why. This is not going to be, by the way, a full in-depth review. I've been thinking that I want to change the way I do actual final reviews to make them more thorough and to make them stand the test of time. So this is more like a first impressions video, but hopefully I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about the Montana. And one of the first things you should know is that it is absolutely capable of smacking the crap out of cruisers and other battleships, particularly when they're broadside. However, it has trash concealment, much like the Gross Occur First, and it does not have access to the concealment module. So you can see with this first initial turn out here, just pushing forward a little bit toward the cap, we are instantly focused by a Yamato, a Suzuya, and a Massachusetts out there, and as a consequence, we're down to about 1/3 health right now. Luckily, the armor on this ship is quite good. The bow and stern plating is 32 millimeters, which means it can be overmatched by the Yamato, but nothing else. And then the upper belt armor is 38 millimeters, and the deck in the center of the ship is also 38 millimeters. This means it can bounce Yamato caliber shells, and it can shatter a significant amount of HE. Of course, the superstructure is massive and full of hit points for cruisers to take with their high explosive. So there is that, limits the survivability just a little bit. But the point here is that I think one of the problems with the Legendary Tier is that these battleships are just too unconcealed. You can see my detection range is 14.5 kilometers on the Montana, which is massive. And actually, it's worse than that because I'm using Kondo, who buffs the concealment of battleships, as an inspiration on my William Sims build. I like to use Kondo on accuracy builds for the most part because I think having a little bit more concealment translates into a little bit better survivability with the accuracy builds that don't get access to the extra repair party consumables. Speaking of which, the Montana gets 3 repair party consumables base, unlike the Yamato and GK, and I think even the Conqueror, which both get 2 repair parties base, so there's a little bit of extra added survivability to the Montana. But just note the battleships in this game. There are a lot of them, and they're all sort of sitting bow on in front of capture circles, exchanging fire with each other downrange. And this is not dynamic or interesting gameplay. I feel like Legendary Tier and higher tier games in general would benefit tremendously if battleships were to see a universal concealment buff in the form of allowing every battleship with a 3rd mod slot, that is every battleship from Tier 6 to the Legendary Tier, to have access to the concealment mod. If that were the case, then battleships would hopefully use that concealment mod because, frankly, the concealment mod is far more valuable than the RGA mod, at least in my opinion. Hopefully more battleships would use that concealment mod, and as a consequence, they would feel a little bit safer to push in closer to the objectives. You know, not necessarily push in and brawl, although it would make brawling easier if you were a little bit more concealed. but to push in closer to the objectives and take up more interesting positions without instantly getting spotted and focused at the start of the game. I think that, more than anything, would contribute to improving battleship gameplay at higher tiers. You can let me know what you think about that in the comments, but this, of course, is not an issue that is unique to the Montana with its poor concealment. The GK also shares this issue, and note that the two, in my opinion, most successful battleships at the Legendary tier, Conqueror and Yamato, both have one thing in common, and that is access to the concealment module. And if you want to play them optimally, you should be using that concealment module. GK and Montana both do not, and as a consequence, I feel like they suffer for it. However, there are good things to be said about the Montana. It is quite accurate, as you can see with that shot there against the Yamato. The shell grouping and dispersion was beautiful, and we were able to strike the Citadel. So it is quite active. It has 12 16-inch, basically Iowa-type guns, and that does give it a hefty amount of broadside. Of course, they are only 16-inch guns, so they can only overmatch 27 millimeters of armor plating. And while that is good for squaring off against some of the tankier Tier 7 cruisers, as time goes on and the Legendary tier becomes more fleshed out, slowly but surely, we are going to see a lot more cruisers with 30 millimeter armor plating, which the Montana cannot overmatch. And likewise, we're going to see more battleships with 18-inch 457 millimeter guns that are capable of overmatching 30 millimeters of armor. Like, for example, the Soviet Kremlin or the French Republique, both of which have 457 millimeter guns and can overmatch that 30 millimeter armor threshold, which is going to become, I think, a lot more important as time goes on in this game, and that is going to limit the efficacy of the Montana as time goes on. Essentially, it's going to get power crept by larger guns. So these guns are best for punishing broadsides, and they can do that quite successfully. They aren't, I think, quite as accurate as the Iowa guns, and that is down to there being 12 of them instead of 9. So that extra gun turret, I think that reduces your accuracy a little bit. I think the dispersion is less good. But that doesn't mean this ship isn't effective. It is pretty effective. It's also enjoys the super heavy American armor-piercing battleship shells, which I do believe have improved penetration angles, so that is something quite nice. It's not a very fast ship, not quite as fast as the Iowa, and it isn't maneuverable either. It has a 950-meter turning circle, and that puts it on par with, frankly, the Grosse Kurfürst and the like. And of course, you can find yourself in turns getting caught by battleship AP like that and getting punished pretty harshly. And basically, I just kind of find this ship fairly underwhelming. I think it's okay. I think I'll probably start to like it more as time goes on, and I certainly think I would like it more if it had access to the concealment module and could get into more effective positions easier to punish broadsides a little bit better. I think it would be a much better ship for that. As far as how is this game going in the Montana, well, my team has captured 2 out of 3 of the capture circles, but we had to throw away all of our destroyers to do it. The enemy team still has 2 destroyers left floating. One of them is in a position to spot me, which is not good, and that is why I'm retreating. I wanted to initially push up into the center and try to get some broadside shots on these Yamatos and this Conqueror moving in, but you can see the Bravo cap is turning red, so we really can't go there. Again, with battleship with this kind of maneuverability, 950-meter turning circle, and fairly slow rudder shift time, it's going to be quite difficult to dodge torpedoes, and the torpedo protection on this ship isn't bad per se. I think it's 37%, but 37% is not at all impressive when you put it up against the likes of something like Yamato, which has the best torpedo protection in the game. So you don't want to be taking torpedoes in this thing. The guns, you can see the accuracy there when we shoot only 2 out of the 4 of the turrets. Leaves a little bit to be desired. This Conqueror is doing something crazy. He is pushing into 2 Yamatos, and he is going to survive for much, much longer than he should. I, of course, am at very low health. I can't really afford to push in, so I kind of have to sit back here and shoot at these enemy battleships pushing in. Only the Conqueror is pushing in, I guess. The Yamatos remain reversed. You can see that with the Conqueror angled to me as he is, we are getting a lot of ricochets and not a lot of penetrations, and again, I think that has a lot to do with the 16-inch gun caliber of this battleship, which, again, as time goes on, is going to become a lot less impressive. Right now, the Yamato is the only Legendary Tier battleship with guns larger than 16-inch, but as more get added to the game, we're going to get more battleships with larger guns and more threats. So there are going to be some situations in the Montana when you're facing off against Legendary Tier battleships like the Yamato and Grossaker first especially, where their pointed bow in at you are really well angled, and unless you hit their superstructure, you really can't do a whole lot of damage. So you're going to see we're up to 125,000 damage done right now, and this is going to end up being the highest damage game I have yet achieved in the Montana before all is said and done. As you can see, though, things aren't going super well for us, and it does look like we are going to lose, but we are going to finish strong, at least in terms of our damage number. Of course, in order to achieve that strong finish in terms of our damage numbers, we are going to have to resort to shooting the high explosive. Take note of my team, though. One of the destroyers has flipped Alpha. This gives the enemy a 2-cap advantage, and my teammates have retaken the center, but again, there's still one destroyer left alive. They took 2 of them out. The Yamatos out here take out both of the friendly Yamatos, and that leaves me the last target for them to focus on, which is not great for me because I do not have a lot of health. But again, the armor on this ship, pretty good, can absolutely bounce Yamato caliber shells. We just need to turn away and actually angle. We kick on the brakes there a little bit to try to juke that shot, and it is successful. We switch to the high explosive now, and you're going to see that the high explosive on this ship can be effective. This is, in this situation, absolutely the right thing to do. If we shoot AP at these bow-on Yamatos, we are not going to be getting a lot of damage, but with the high explosive, we will get relatively consistent damage, and we will start fires. Again, this is a 12-gun battleship. I don't think the high explosive Alpha is especially impressive. I think it might be like 5.3k, and I don't think the fire chance is especially impressive either if you just look at it on paper, somewhere in the 30% range if I'm not mistaken. But with the 12 guns, I mean, a lot of fire chance potential. There are 3 perma fires on that enemy Yamato. He damage conned the first one. Huge mistake for him, and he is going to pay for that with a lot of hit points. Unfortunately, we only have 1,800 hit points left, and even though we get the high caliber and another fire on that Yamato, this shot is ultimately going to take us out, but the damage is still going to continue to tick up. And the damage output on this thing, I think if you're going to maximize it, you are going to have to shoot high explosive from time to time, just based on the meta of the Legendary Tier, which features a lot of Yamatos and a lot of GKs, both of which you can't really do a lot of damage to when they're facing you bow on or they are well angled. And in those situations, the high explosive is certainly your friend. Less than a minute left to go in this game. Doesn't seem like we are going to be able to win it. This last battleship here, It's a Vanguard. He's still pretty healthy, but he's got a smoked up destroyer right in front of him. And of course, the two Yamatos are about to come around that corner, and the Vanguard is not going to stand up well to those. So we are going to lose this game, unfortunately. But we do end up doing 195,000 damage to the enemy ships. A lot of that last bit of damage done with fires and high explosive. All in all, well, wow, that Yamato actually gets a Kraken. GG to him. Congratulations on that. I hope you enjoyed being featured in this video. In any case, the Montana, I feel like it is just an okay Legendary Tier Battleship. I don't think it's the strongest one. I think the Yamato or Conqueror would probably take that title, but it's certainly an okay battleship. It is very much like an upgraded version of an Iowa with more guns and less maneuverability. I suppose that's the TLDR on the ship. I've already started the Bureau project. I do intend to get the ship, but if you don't have all the Legendary Tier battleships, I would recommend going for Yamato or Conqueror before this one, because frankly, both of them are just better. Let me know what you think about this ship in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.